Welcome to Week in Horror.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
The podcast that deep dives all the films you love.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
The week they dropped in horror history.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
With your horror hosts, JL. When a shirtless Sam Elliott with no mustache takes out an alligator with an oar, that's the kind of movie I'm looking for. Eugene.
And we're just casually just like, yeah, so this is probably the best way to go, light someone on fire with gasoline.
Alex.
It would not be an original lineup if I didn't have fucking technical difficulty.
Johnny O.
Now, it's not in Amityville, or wherever it's Amityville.
And Aaron.
They got manure to work with and nothing grew from it.
News, trailers, trivia, special guests, and more.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Live show every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central at youtube.com/weekinhorror.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
And wherever you listen to podcasts.
One by one, we will take you.
Week in Horror. Stay scared. Welcome, horror fans. It is Wednesday, a little after 7 p.m. Central Time. That means it's time for another episode of the Week in Horror podcast, the only podcast that actually would pay $200 for a broken meteor. And if you, dear horror fanatic, are listening to us at the top of the week, remember, we do this live here every single Wednesday right here on YouTube. Come hang out with us. See all the cool stuff that our editor doesn't want you to see when she cuts out all that unnecessary tangents I go on. But yeah, this week we are covering select horror films released June 18th through June 24th. Thank you all so much for joining us. I am JL, and with me tonight are the OG crew, Alex and Eugene.
What up?
What's up, everybody?
The boys are back in town.
Yeah!
I do love it when we have the OG crew, like the original starters, the varsity team. When we have the varsity team here, it's always a lot of fun.
It's hard. We're all pretty busy now, so this is it's nice when we can swing everybody in the same room at the same time.
We are embattled veterans, is what we are. We began just like simple recordings, cobbled together, from like different channels, just like, and then splicing and all this into this full-fledged production that we have going on right now. So we've been in the trenches. We've seen the shit as far as podcast creators go.
Man, I was setting up this audio equipment this weekend, and I came across some of the original recordings from like weeks 3 and 4 that I still had saved on my computer.
Don't look at it. Don't look at us to how far. No, don't look at it as how far we've come, not what we used to be. It's kind of like because it's like, wow, we've come so far. And I don't mean when I say we've been in the shit, not to knock, because Eugene's been in the shit. But the real shit, and we just we had difficulty making a podcast.
I wasn't gonna compare the two. I'm not like you use the term "in this shit" incorrectly.
I saw the look on your face. You're like, this motherfucker talking about being in the shit. What the fuck?
You don't know the shit.
I spent all night editing and compiling and splicing and trying to make us sound good. This motherfucker taking like live rounds. So.
Have you ever edited under fire?
No, I have not.
Hang on, enemy. I'm trying to export right now.
Oh, hold on. That's wait. All right. But it is so awesome. It's always great to have the original crew here. And plot hole. Let's talk about Human Gus. Yes, we'll talk about Human Gus. A good inside joke from last week. I see plot hole hanging out there in the chat. That's Johnny O hanging out in the chat. And I'm sure Aaron will be along shortly. But before, we got a whole bunch of shit. We got an exciting show tonight. We have a bunch of stuff that we want to cover before we dive into tonight's film selections. So before we get started, let me get this up here real quick. Bam, there is our amazing patron banner, all of the incredible people that help to make this show possible by contributing to our Patreon. So we really do appreciate every single one of you. You guys make this possible. I mean, we're coming up on the end of season 4. After this episode, 12 episodes left. and then that's season 5.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing for the people that don't know. A season isn't like, oh, we did 22 episodes and we're on the next season. A season is 52 episodes. It's one whole year.
I have caught so much shit from some of my friends back in Texas who were like, "Oh, so you're wow, 4 seasons. Wow, okay. So how many episodes you got? Like 80, like 70, 80 episodes." Like, dude, man, we're coming up on episode 200. Well, you only have 4 seasons. It's like, yeah, one every week. It's like a year is not a fucking season.
It is.
It is for us. It is. A year is a season. So it was the only. It's what came to me. I didn't know how else to put it. But nonetheless, it is coming up. 12 episodes to go. After this one, 12 episodes to go before we've been doing this 4 years, and we've had a blast the entire time. It has been an incredible experience. But before we get there, that's in the future. Let's talk about who we've got in the live chat tonight before we dive into our stuff, because we got a busy show tonight. So I see first and foremost Raven Darkstar's here. Good to see you, Raven Darkstar, who was first. Good to see you, bud. Thank you so much. Good to see you, milady. Thank you so much for being here. Casey Cooper is here as well. Says, or are you a figment of my imagination, Raven? Raven is a figment of all of our imaginations, the unattainable. That's what it is. But Raven, we're so glad you're here. Casey Cooper as well. Let me see. Who else is here? Sherry Tilley is here. Good to see you, Sherry Tilley. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Travis Brown as well says, good evening, freaks and geeks. Good to see you, Travis. Always good to have you, bud. Brian Powell is here. Good to see you. Says, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much, Brian. Sarcasm as well says, hello, everybody. Good to see you, Sarcasm. Angel Rivera as well says, what up, all you horror fiends? What up, Angel? Good to see you. How are things down there in the PR? Let me see who else we got here. Case Cooper says, Week in Horror. They say it takes 100 query letter rejections on average before you find representation for a book. I am 1/10 of the way, I guess. I got my 10th rejection letter today. Keep plugging away.
Yes.
That just means you're getting closer.
Yes.
That just means you're getting closer.
You're getting closer. Keep plugging away at it, Casey. Absolutely. Wish you all the best on that. Gosh, if Heckfire's here, one of the best names on the internet. Good to see you. So what up, you beautiful people? It's good to see you, Gosh. Thanks so much for hanging out. Mr. Malort is here all the way from Chicago. It says, I remember seeing Nightwing in the theater. Holy shit. You are fucking old. No, just a little old. That's an old, kind of an old by comparison. For us, we say old. We're talking like 40s, 50s, Hammer horror and shit. For him, for people today, 90s is old. So
yeah, I hope so.
Isn't that shocking?
I just turned 33 on Friday last week.
It's like, you could say, like, people born after, what was it? It's like people born after 9/11 can now legally drink.
Fuck out of here. Why are you gonna bring that negativity into the group, man? Come on.
It's wild. Yes, we're getting it. It happens to all of us, my friend. It does.
Yeah, I won't even go into the math we did, because one of the children are getting to an age where it's like, yeah, I could be grandpa technically if they started having kids when I did.
Fucking wild.
It's terrifying.
Sally Skeleton is here. Good to see you, Sally Skeleton. Says, where the horror folks at? We are right here. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Dib Dib says, oh, I thought I was late. You were not late, Dib Dib. Good to see you. Eugene's camera unfortunately went out. He's going to pop back in here in a second. Let me see here. So Dib Dib, good to see you. Thanks so much for hanging out. Road no last name. Gab it to you. Colin, definitely not Cromwell's in the house. Says, hello, everyone. Good to see you, Colin. Let me see. Got to scroll down, make sure I don't miss nobody. Denova 28, another one of our amazing supporters. Good to see you, Denova. Says, hello, horror nerds. Hello, Denova. Always happy to see you. Charlie Welch, the Welchster, the Welchmeister, the only man on the internet you never make a bet with. Good to see you, Charlie. Always good to have you. And there's Johnny O, keeping the live chat going. Wants to talk about Human Gus. Absolutely. Tony Regime is here with obligatory ghost. Says, boo at Week in Horror. And everyone, good to see you, Tony. Always good. What's up?
I said, boo. Scared me.
Yes, and Eugene says, Gaffer, I need lighting. He does need lighting. But, but Plothole says, Alex, you have a tribble on your back. Apparently he's talking about your hair. We are talking about his hair in the green room. Your hair is looking amazing.
I know, thank you. I've been growing it out. I think it's been like 8 months now.
What's awesome is that at your age, you've maintained the color. At your age and number of children you have, you've maintained the color.
That's a big one. There's a couple grays that keep coming in. My wife keeps plucking them. I'm just like, leave them. Fucking Makes me look distinguished.
Oh, Casey Cooper says a year is 4 seasons: fall, winter, spring, and orange cone.
Unless you're in Texas, then it's hot, hotter construction, hot construction.
This is true. Let me see here. Eugene, what is it? Eugene? Eugene quoting Airplane in the live chat. Absolutely. Yes. Angel Rivera says it's PR is hot and super humid down where they are. I heard it's the same in Texas. Is it hot?
Yeah, it's rough, dude.
Because it's actually fairly cool up where I am.
It was 72 last night, and then today it was 97 or 98 and 100% humidity. So it is fucking hot out here today. Yeah. I'm going to be sweating a little bit. I apologize in advance.
Gosh Effect Frost says getting old beats the alternative. It sure as shit does. And let me see here. Sherry Tilly says 2 seasons in Florida, hurricane and fire. Absolutely. And pretty soon, I think tornado season as well, because Tornado Alley is shifting.
Man, I'll tell you what. We were down in Corpus Christi a couple of weeks ago, and we kept getting these alerts on our phone. And they're like, look out for funnel clouds. You know, we got fun. I'm like, why do I keep getting these funnel cloud alerts? And we're driving down the road. We saw 3 funnel clouds. Apparently it just happens down on the coast, like right off out in the water. They're just funnel clouds. So we got to sit there. It was sunny where we were, just north of us. We saw like 3 or 4 funnel. It was pretty cool. So
wow.
It's tornado season down here in Texas.
Intense. Oh, Casey Cooper would like to remind us, for all of us assholes talking about how old we are. He says, Casey Cooper says, I was old enough to go to Woodstock. I didn't, but I am old enough. LOL. And he says his last haircut was just before his first year in college, 1970.
That's got to be a hell of a head of hair.
It has to flow gloriously in the wind.
If he's managed to keep it. That's the key.
Damn, I didn't even think of that. Sorry.
Sarcasm says, my girl says I have earned every gray hair on my head, but I don't deserve any of them.
Damn.
Fucking brutal. I think I've earned every gray in this fucking beard. I really have.
The beard is quite glorious. I feel like not that long ago you shaved it all off and it's back. So
yeah, it came in quick, so I was really, really pleased. And this time I'm taking really, really good care of it. So it's just it's not fully dried. I had to, because I got back from the gym, and then I had to hit the shower, and it's kind of like still straggly from being wet. So it'll probably go, during the course of the show.
2 seasons of the Mojave, wrote in the last name. 2 seasons of the Mojave, summer and December. You're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
The desert, it's hot, hot, hot. Holy shit, why is it so cold? Hot, hot, hot.
All right. So to kick off this show, and we're going to start with some of the bad news first. Again, then we're going to move on to the fun stuff. But we have to pay tribute. Unfortunately, just recently, I think it was like yesterday or day before yesterday, we unfortunately lost Treat Williams. Treat Williams passed away. It was a kind of a shock because he was in great health. Unfortunately, it was an unfortunate motorcycle accident up in Vermont. Apparently, he was an avid motorcycle rider as well as an avid pilot. He was a commercially trained pilot as well. But he was out riding his motorcycle. Unfortunately, a car cut across him. He couldn't avoid it, and unfortunately, he passed away. So, all you motorcycle riders out there, be safe. But yeah, we showed Treat a lot of fucking love. At least we showed a lot of love. Johnny O did not.
Johnny shit all over him.
But we showed Treat a lot of love because we love Treat Williams here at Week in Horror. We love him as the substitute. We love him in the little turns he had in some various horror films here and there. And we so we wanted to pay tribute and say it was a bummer that we lost him, but we got his great filmography. And if you non-horror stuff, if you fucking loved him in Everwood, or you loved him in there was that medical one he did. I can't remember his filmography, but he's got a fantastic filmography. That he's all the fantastic works that he's done. I grew up with him on Everwood. That's where I first encountered Treat Williams. So it's kind of a bummer. It was a shame, but we have a lot of work of his to remember him by.
Oh, well, that also brings up, like, it's the motorcycle riders, please always be safe, and then people who are driving cars and trucks, please always look out for motorcyclists.
Always,
yes.
Always, because they're there, and they don't have that armor protection like a car does.
Even in a car, you got to think about it. Like I got rear-ended by a fucking BMW 4 weeks ago, and like it's nobody's paying attention. I was stopped. We were completely stopped at a very known stopped point where it's always traffic. So it's if you drive that way every day, you know we're going to be stopped there. I stopped my car. I looked in the rearview mirror. Guy was not paying any attention. Slammed right into the back of me. So pay attention because nobody fucking else is apparently.
Yeah. Absolutely. Travis Brown brings up, I think I first remember Treat Williams in the 1996 Phantom film, but Everwood is where I really got to know him. Absolutely. And Travis Brown also reminds us the Tales from the Crypt episode, None But the Lonely Heart with Treat Williams. Fuck yes. His horror, his little, like forays into horror are out there. They're few and far between, but they are out there. So he contributed to the genre. And he was an amazing actor, extremely talented, well loved amongst pretty much the entire community. And I loved his body of work, so it's a shame. And of course, Plothole says that's a dick move, JL. It's a dick move because you're a dick. I'm not telling the truth. And Casey Cooper says apparently Cormac McCarthy passed away. Did that happen?
Did it happen?
Yes, he did. He passed away at 89 years old. He wrote The Road and a number of other. He was a prolific writer. Wow. So he passed away as well. Yeah, he wrote Road, No Country for Old Men, Blood Meridian. So many of his films have been adapted into film, or so many of his books have been adapted into film. But All the Pretty Horses. But yeah, that's a damn shame. Cormac McCarthy passed away as well. Okay. And
Liam Wakefield just brought up another point. Plus cyclists and horse riders, and that's definitely something you run into down here in the South for sure.
This is true. So yes, please be safe out there, motorcyclists. Please be safe. Wear your helmets. Be aware. And those who don't ride motorcycles, those who are only driving cars, be aware of motorcyclists because they like Alex said, they don't have that protection. But rest in peace to Treat Williams, and of course Cormac McCarthy as well, which is a shame. But yeah, so I wanted to get the bad news out, pay our respects to a legend and then jump onto some stuff. This is really, really interesting. So we actually asked this in a previous, it says maybe this is just inappropriate. Maybe Plothole. Oh, just because I did like his acting choices. Anyway, so I got wind, or the news hit recently, just a couple of days ago. And we asked this as a trivia question. Should the Leprechaun franchise be left to die, or should it continue? Well, we have an answer now, like an official answer, and that is Lionsgate, as of June 9th, is reviving the Leprechaun franchise with a new movie from director Felipe Vargas. So, for those not familiar with Felipe Vargas, Vargas directed an award-winning short film horror film called Milk Teeth. You can find it on YouTube, so be sure to check that out. But they are bringing the Leprechaun franchise back, and it essentially is kind of a soft reboot. So it's going back to the beginning and doing it again. Warwick Davis will not be involved,
which kind of ruins the whole fucking thing. But
what are your thoughts?
That ruins it. It's going to be hard to. It's such a cult film that I think it's going to have a hard time catching on with today's audience without having Warwick in there.
Agreed. I mean, think about it. There's one Leprechaun movie without Warwick Davis, and that movie's really bad. Like really bad.
There were two. There were two Leprechaun films. There was Leprechaun Returns and Leprechaun Origins.
Okay, I'm thinking of Leprechaun Origins.
Yeah, but both of them were awful.
Yeah, but that was bad. That was just really, really bad. The thing is, it's when you have somebody who's so infused in a franchise. So, say for Warwick Davis, what do you think about Doug Bradley and Hellraiser? When you think about you have some of these people, they carry the franchise. They do. When you have multiple people play like Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers, then you have that freedom to we can bring in another Leprechaun and we can kind of keep this series going. But you take somebody like for example, we talked about Robert Englund. Robert Englund is Freddy Krueger. If they had a different Freddy for every single movie, then by all means, fine, whatever. But you have Warwick Davis. how if you try to make it scary, they already tried with Origins and it was terrible. And if you try to make it funny or a fun comedy, we already have that. So what do you do?
What about you, Alex?
Oh no, I'm terrified, but not in the way that we like to be terrified on this show.
Yeah, the Leprechaun. Travis Brown brings up the Hornswoggle. Hornswoggle from WWE. Hornswoggle was brought in to play Leprechaun, the Leprechaun in Leprechaun Origins, and it wasn't even really a leprechaun. It was like this monster thing that came out of a well. I have no fucking clue. I literally forgot that movie after I watched it. But the last two have been absolutely terrible. But Lionsgate is bringing it back. So, what are your thoughts?
Hold on. Casey Cooper made a very important point here. Okay, there's one way that they couldn't fuck it up for sure.
Casey Cooper says they should CGI Conor McGregor as the Leprechaun. That'd be fucking hilarious.
Because he goes around punches people.
That reminds me of the movie 42. Or movie 43. Movie 43 with Jerry Butler as the leprechauns in that, because that shit was fucking hilarious. Oh, that was funny. And someone else said wrote no last name, said at least they're not going to try to digitally shrink Mark Wahlberg as a leprechaun. That would be fucking weird. So, but definitely let us know your thoughts in the comments below or weekinhorror@gmail.com. Lionsgate's bringing it back. What do you think? What are your opinions? I'm really, really curious.
Okay. I'll throw a name out there. And I just want to see your opinions, and this is a curveball, right? It could work, could not work, but just thinking of little people playing that role. Peter Dinklage.
Oh, okay. As good as he is and as funny as he can be, he would never take it.
No, but if you wanted to pull an audience that's more relevant to today's times, that would probably be the way to do it.
you'd have to dump truckloads of money in him. And I'm talking just back up the mint to his house. And just beep, and just shower him. Just make it rain, and then he would come in and do it.
I just want to throw it out there. Obviously he's not going to play. He's making $1 million an episode on Game of Thrones. He does not need the money by any means. And he is such a talented, and he has such a great range as an actor that, it's just, he would never, I don't want to say it's like beneath him, but it's something that he would like never do. I just want to throw it out there just to see what people said.
That'd be interesting. I'd like to hear what people think about that as well. I loved him in Cyrano. His latest is Cyrano de Bergerac. His latest one, he was fucking phenomenal in that. Absolutely phenomenal.
He's great in everything, man.
He's fantastic in everything he does. Everything he does. But yeah, so let's hear your opinions. Now, moving forward.
Hold on. Before you go forward, can I throw something out there? There was a movie, and before I forget it, I want to know if anybody in the audience has watched it, because I came across it and I haven't got a chance to watch it. It's a Cronenberg film that came out. It's called Crimes of the Future.
Yes.
If anybody's seen it, let me know, because I don't want to get disappointed, because it's been a long time since I've watched a new Cronenberg film.
It's Cronenberg, man.
I know, and it's got to be great. But
you can't go in with expectations.
But Kristen Stewart's in it. So
Kristen Stewart, her role is not as big as Vigo's or I forget her name. God, I'm gonna smash myself in the face later. But anyway, but her role is smaller. So, and plus she always does good with ensemble films. Like she was good in Underwater because the focus was not all on her.
Right.
So that's the important thing. It's like when I don't think she's got the chops to carry as a lead, because I've seen like Personal Shopper and a number of other films that she's done.
Right.
Not great, but when she's part of an ensemble like Adventureland or American Ultra, she actually does quite well.
Okay, she was really good in American Ultra, but that was supposed to be like a dopey.
That was an acid trip of a fucking film.
Yeah.
Oh, shut up, Johnny O. He's like, no, she wasn't. She's not been good in anything. She has been good. She does have chops. She does. So moving forward, and I got to bring up this blast of the past. So I came across this, and I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it, but maybe some of you in the live chat are not. But we have to check this out. And it's a teaser for an upcoming series that will be on Peacock. We're going to watch it real quick. I hope you all dig it. I'm not even going to spoil it. Let's just check this out.
Yeah, just play it. Let's just see.
Play it.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
So I had to show everybody the teaser for Twisted Metal.
It's
because I grew up playing it on the PlayStation.
Oh God, PS1, yeah, dude.
Yes.
I still got the disc.
And I remember the reboot for PS2, and it was all like super dark, and it used like fucking Rolling Stones Painted Black as the music.
So Twisted Metal Black. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember it, and it blew my. I was like, no fucking way. How did it, I mean? And it just kind of popped up because I saw the trailer pop. I was like, no shit. It's got Anthony fucking Mackie in it, and there's a clip out there of a fight between Sweet Tooth, the clown ice cream guy, and Anthony Mackie's character John Doe. And apparently, Sweet Tooth is voiced by Will Arnett, which is just amazing.
It's so good. If you get a chance, go check out that clip on YouTube because it's hilarious and it sets, I think, what the show is going to be. Because I think this is going to be good. I think Peacock's really stepped up in their original series recently, and so it's like, yeah, it's probably going to be pretty good.
Oh, let's see. Colin Definitely Cromwell says, "Oh my God, I can't wait for this." Jay Vers, hey, good to see you. Jay Vers, good to see you. Says, "What? That's awesome." Roddy No Last Name says, "Oh boy, that could be interesting." And Sarcasm says, "Oh, wait, no." Travis Brown says, "Oh yeah, Twisted Metal. It looks okay for now, but after seeing Sweet Tooth in a clip, so I have some hopes for it." Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I like Anthony Mackie. I've loved all of his work. And of course, he's a fantastic actor, comedy and drama. So, and of course, Will Arnett is going to make it hilarious. But the question is how they're going to do all the other characters and how each episode is going to play. So there's no details out there so far, but it comes out, I believe, next month.
Yeah,
so July 27th. And I don't know who knows? Who fucking knows?
I'm excited about it. It's one of those franchises that you could really have fun with it, and it doesn't necessarily have to have a super convoluted story like some of the other like real deep video games. Think games like Final Fantasy or like Metal Gear Solid or a lot of those kind of RPG style. This could just be a fun horror meets like what is it? Death Race. Horror meets Death Race with Jason Statham in it, and that could just be fun.
Roddy No Last Name says, "I hope they embrace the cheese like Blood Drive." Fuck yeah. Fuck yes. I'm looking forward to it. So definitely let us know in the comments if you're looking forward to the Twisted Metal series coming out on Peacock next month. We're going to watch it, so it's going to be amazing. I hope so. I hope it's going to be amazing. It could be absolutely fucking silly. I have no idea, but it should be good. I think it would be a nice break. And kind of like something new and interesting. It was like, holy shit, they finally fucking did it. Because that came out in the original PlayStation back in the 90s. And finally, 2023, we have a Twisted Metal series. All right. And last but not least, I came across this trailer I want to show everybody that people may not have seen. It is a new one from A24. And this is the trailer for a film called Talk to Me, which looked really fucking creepy. Charlie Walt said he just canceled his Peacock too.
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you. So let's check out this trailer for the new A24 horror film, Talk to Me, because it caught my attention. I figured we want to share it because some people might not have seen it. It's super fucking creepy.
Have you seen the group chat? They're doing it again tonight. No. Please. It's my mom's Remembrance Day. I just want to forget about it. Who's up? I'll do it.
Cannot go for more than 90 seconds. Am I clear?
What happens after 90 seconds?
Don't want to stay. Light the candle to open the door. Blow it out to close it. Put your hand on it. Now say, talk to me.
Talk to me.
What did the hand feel like?
Felt amazing. I could see and feel everything on the other side. So my mom, she was trying to reach out. I'm here. Still been seeing stuff.
You mean saying stuff?
What if we opened the door but we didn't shut it? Oh my god, they followed us! I like you. They're not gonna stop. They're never gonna stop! I like you. Talk to me.
I'd like to rebut with my short film, Don't Talk to Me, please.
So yes, Australian horror film. Australia is a Australian horror film, which I don't think we get enough of. But yes, I think it's and Sarcasm brings up a very cool MacGuffin. I like it. It looks super fucking creepy. I think this one is a solid winner.
It depends, as long as they don't rely on jump scares. And the fact that you said it's Australian gives me more hope, because it's far more creepy. Like, you see her in the corner, like crawling. If you did more of like a Hereditary effect, where it's like you kind of see your eyes kind of focus, and then it kind of comes in and you realize it's her like crawling, that's way more creepy than just jump out in front of your face. So this could have potential. I'm hoping that they didn't give away. They spent a long time setting the premise up. So I'm hoping they didn't give away like all the good parts.
Definitely.
So it could be interesting.
I have high hopes. And after watching that trailer, and we recommend to anybody else out there, if you haven't seen it, like, check out the trailer for Talk to Me, and let us know down in the comments below what you think of that upcoming horror film. I'm looking forward to it. It's coming out the day after Twisted Metal comes out on July 28th. So looking forward to that. Absolutely. All right. So that's enough there. We got horror movies to talk about because this is a horror movie podcast. We got a good selection tonight. Alex, why don't you kick us off? What do we have up first?
All right, let's start this off with I Was a Teenage Werewolf. Ooh, edgy. Came out June 19th, 1957. And then what? An adult meerkat? Like what? Okay.
Wow.
Oh, let's check out this trailer. Ooh, edgy.
Hell of a tackle.
Yes, it was. This is actually a pretty good fight.
It was.
Help me, doctor, please! I know they're going to kiss me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me!
Michael Landon in a powerful performance as the boy possessed. Yvonne Lyne, appealing as the girl who loves him. Whit Bissell, unforgettable as the scientist maddened by the mystery of the werewolf. And Tony Marshall, a tough, friendly enemy.
These are official pictures?
Yes, Chief.
Slash on either side of the throat. You got any theories?
Fangs.
He was killed by a werewolf.
Panic penetrates every home when this strange, unknown killer hits town, taking hold of the teenage crowd, coloring their practical jokes with hysterical humor that'll make you fall flat on your face with horror.
Now, remember how wonderful it was when you sprang and suddenly dug in with your fangs, a soft throat, the gush of warm blood?
No! No!
Nothing you've ever seen has such blood-chilling savagery. Nothing you've ever conceived packs such a spine-tingling jolt. This high school boy, a teenage werewolf, a constant threat of claw-ripping attack to everyone, to the brave and the beautiful.
Got to admit, some pretty good screams in that one.
You really did.
That's pretty good. All right, this was written by Gene Fowler Jr. I'm sorry, this was directed by Gene Fowler Jr., written by Herman Cohen and Aben Candel. This one stars Michael London, Yvonne Lime. There's Don Richards, Barney Phillips was in this, Whit Bissell, sorry, Charles Wilcox, Joseph Mell. And as you saw, this pretty much played all of it in the trailer. We got a hypnotherapist who is using hypnotism to kind of test a serum that, as all sketchy medical procedures go, just fucking goes sideways, turns into a werewolf, and starts fucking people up. I was very surprised that the detectives figured out that it was fangs from these two slash marks. Do you have any ideas? They just jump straight to fucking werewolf. Like,
just go straight to it.
I just got through. Werewolf.
You think we could have
Let's
like a
go
serial
with it.
killer? Did somebody murder him? Did he get nah, bro? What? You're stupid.
I also loved the janitor, like the janitor who's worked there for 12 years, and like he's obviously Romani, and he's like, oh, may I see the picture? And he looks at the picture. It's a werewolf. Are you serious? Yes, I'm serious. Let's fucking run with it, baby. It's like,
how often does this happen here?
It's like we get shit done. Like the acceptance of the supernatural is so fucking fast in this film. Is like, well, it's obviously supernatural. Well, it's obviously supernatural. Let's go get out the fucking supernatural torches. That's what we use when there's supernatural afoot. So they bust out the torches and they're ready to go. Oh man,
I actually really appreciated that with this film too, because so many of these films is about like, well, what is it? And it's mystery. And even some of the later ones we'll talk about today, it's like, well, we got to figure out what it is. And they're doing all this investigation that somebody comes in who's like an expert, and it's back and forth. But this is just straight like the werewolf. Cool, let's go with it. Could it be a mountain lion? Could it be a regular wolf? Could it be a type? Nope, werewolf. Let's go.
It's like the opposite of Willem Dafoe and Boondock Saints. Like, he arrests the two brothers, and all of a sudden these two killers are out there, and they're like, who the fuck could it be? And it takes them an entire fucking movie to figure it out. And then it's the opposite. They walk in, they're like, nah, bro, werewolf, get your bullets. Like,
let's go.
I will give it this, and I was pleasantly surprised for a 1957 film. This was extremely well written, despite if you try to compare it to the things that we have today, or I say the cinematic sensibilities that we have today, it's going to fall short. Like, for example, how quickly everyone jumps on the werewolf hypothesis, and some really, and there's a lot of things that stand out as kind of like, definitely there were products of the 50s, like how women are treated, how women are objectified. Women are definitely objects in this, and kind of like, that whole 50s mentality. But as far as a horror film goes, it was extremely well written and very well crafted. I've loved the way this thing was shot, the way the director approached it, and of course, each scene, each area, whether it's the police station or it's the school or it's out in the woods or it's at the laboratory with Bissell's mad scientist. I love how every single area felt unique. There was a kind of its own approach to both lighting and the way sound was captured. I enjoyed every. This was really, really smartly done.
It was really well done, and this is the standard for cinematography in the 50s. This is a production that understood color. And I know what you're saying in terms of, well, the movie's black and white. But the thing is you have to understand is that they knew it was black and white, and they dressed sets and they dressed clothing accordingly. So you would wear things like certain types of greens, certain type of pinks to know how that coloring is going to come out in the black and white. Things like I think the Monsters set, the original Monsters set was pink, because they wanted the walls to be light, but not too light like a pure like white set would be. So playing with colors is a huge thing. Another thing that I really appreciated about this film, and you're going to start noticing, is you're starting to get films that are marketed towards teenagers.
Right.
Because most films were adult driven because they were the people who had the money they would go spend. All the Hammer horror films and all the horror films, it's always adults. But now what you're getting to, and this is what I was thinking about when I was watching this film, is it's 1957. You have drive-ins. You're the first time you're having high school teenagers with a car taking dates to the drive-thru, because this is a date movie. Like this really is. This is for teenagers. And that's why when you have the part about the werewolf, no, we don't need the investigative stuff. We need the action stuff. We need to keep the pace moving constantly, so we're keeping teenagers engaged with the film. That's the main thing that I took away from watching it.
It was really well done, and having it centered around Michael Landon at the time, this early point in his career, before he would go on to like big things like Bonanza, and obviously his career he had before he passed away so untimely. But with Michael Landon at the forefront and expressing everything expressed in the script is everything from the teenager's perspective. The way that we deal with authority, the way we deal with obviously the difficulties of high school, difficulties of socialization, especially when you feel like an outsider already. All of these things played into it. It was extremely, the writer on this, the writers on this, I have to give it to them. Cohen and Candle had a really, really good sense of what it's like to be young in America at that time and going through the difficulties of high school, especially with someone with kind of like this social the background of Michael Landon's character is that it's a single father household. So already the community kind of like looks down on them from that perspective. It's not a complete family. So the idea that he's already kind of on the outside and every little thing sets him off. And, it was a common, everybody dealt with this. So it speaks to teenagers in that way, which I really, really dug. AIP was really smart in how they put this together and how they portrayed the film. But the key thing that gets me was the lighting in this. The lighting is what sells. You talk about like coloring and how they were dealing with that, but how each individual had lighting that seemed to me to be set for them, whether it was Landon or whether it was the mad scientist or whether it was the cops or anything of that nature, or when it was the werewolf itself. And I love how they chose to do that because it's black and white. It's like old comic books. And that's how like the old dime store comic books, when each character was portrayed a particular way to convey an aspect of that character. And they did it perfectly in this one. I love that underlighting on the mad scientist. Whenever the mad scientist is around, he's always underlit. So it's like, where's the light coming from? Doesn't fucking matter.
Doesn't matter.
He's a bad guy. It's what it is.
The light, and one of the things that you get when you start studying lighting is lighting in films does not make sense. And when you start watching films, you start studying lighting, light doesn't behave as it should. A lot of times you'll see in lighting, you'll see a subject sitting there and you see a lamp behind them, but some of that color of that lighting is hitting like the front part of their face. Light travels in straight lines. In real life, it will never do that. But we watch a movie and we'll go, oh yeah, that's justified. The light hitting the front part of his face coming from that lamp behind him, that's justifiable. Yeah, I can see that. Another thing is when you start getting into color, what color is the moon in films? It's blue. What color is the moon in real life? It's white, or it's white light from the sun bouncing to
It's
Earth.
Not purple.
I know. I was
I gotta
surprised. But so a lot of times you'll see certain things like lighting doesn't make sense in terms of the way lighting should behave. But in movies, you light for what you're trying to reveal. You're lighting for your subject. Your lighting doesn't matter. You're right. It doesn't matter that the scientist has this underlighting coming from them. You know what? It looks evil, and they went with it.
Yes. Liam Wakefield, and good to see you, Liam. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Says, like the love interest used to have a band of light across her eyes in close-ups. Classic techniques like that. And this film is absolutely full of them. That's what I think what makes this film so charming and why it wound up being AIP's like top grossing film out of like the monster flicks that they did. And I will also give that to Michael Landon, because Michael Landon was a tremendous actor and he brought a lot of pathos to a role that could have been one-dimensional, which I really, really enjoyed. He was afraid he could be tough. The film opens up with him in a fight. And I love that sequence when he's in the scrap, right? He's just scrapping. Oh, here's just two guys scrapping. The minute he picks that fucking shovel up, the score change, like the music changes. And boom, you get the deal. It's like, oh, he changed, because back then grabbing a weapon in a fight was a big no-no. That was an honor thing. It's like if you're fighting with your fists, you don't pick up a weapon and start swinging. That's just against the rules. He does that and things change, and now we're going dark, which I really liked. Certain aspects, I loved aspects like that, which really, really sold it for me.
Well, because the thing is you pick up a weapon, the fight becomes real.
Right.
Like you're fighting and everybody's thinking, okay, this is a schoolyard scrap, and people fight in schoolyards all the time. But as soon as you pick up a weapon, I'm intending to do bodily harm at a dangerous level.
Right.
And that's where the fight gets real. And the score changes it. Another thing I really enjoy about the cinematography of this film, there's a lot of camera movement.
Yes.
A lot of camera movement, a lot of dolly ins and a lot of push outs. And there's camera movement in just about every scene. And it's well executed. Like for something called I Was a Teenage Werewolf, you think it's going to be some cheesy 1950s slog. But the movie's extremely well executed in terms of its cinematography. Like it feels like a big budget movie.
Very dynamic. Very. I mean, it engrossed me. It caught me. I was kind of like, oh wow. From the opening fight scene all the way to the and I loved the chase scene in the woods when they're out there in the woods and they're running around. I did that, and I'm very impressed with how they lit it. Lighting black and white films at night, shooting at night. And shooting in black and white, or black and white was what they had available at the time. Always seemed very, very difficult to me. I was hoping that you could elucidate a little bit, Eugene, on pulling that off, like how they pulled that off. Because when you don't have like nowadays, we understand how there's like studio. Now you have you can fix things in post. Back then, you're shooting on just film stock, and trying to adjust things in film stock is really, really difficult compared to what we can do now. Nowadays, we can shoot during the day and we can make it look like night in post. But back then, they're shooting in the dark. They're shooting out there at night in an open wooded area. And you've got your camera, you've got the crew and everything, and you've got some lighting, but...
Well, see, it's a combination. So it's a combination of the film stock you're using and the lights you're using. So back then during the day, you would actually buy film stock in various, what they call ISO. And they usually start around 100, 200, and they can go all the way up to like 10,000. And basically what the number is, the higher the number, the more sensitive that film stock is to light. So you would get, if you're going to, I'm shooting a night scene, I need to get a higher ISO, or I'm shooting a day scene, I need to get a lower ISO. And cinematographers would be experts at knowing what film stock you would get. Because also on the downside is this, the higher the number, the more sensitive is the light, the more grainy it can come across.
Right.
If you go too high and you don't expose well, you'll get that grain that we'll see in a lot of films, especially one film we'll talk about later. You'll see that. So one of the things is getting the appropriate film stock. And then when you're looking at your moonlight, and the thing I liked about this is it creates these pools of light. Because you can't just, let's do a blanket light everywhere, because then it's like, that just doesn't make sense. But if you have these pools of light in enough spaces, so you have characters coming into the light and kind of going out of the light with the appropriate film stock, so you're still getting the information you need on the darker spots, that's how you get that really good exposure at night. You just have to approach it as a plan instead of having the sun basically do the work for you. You're just having these, and these are giant lights. I'm talking big lights that are, my arm span is about 6 feet. That's probably the size of one of those lights that's lighting an area to make sure you get the information. And then you always keep in mind, you can always darken it a little bit in post too. If it's a little bit too bright, you can darken. But if you get something that's too dark when you film it, you can't brighten it. So they definitely thought about this ahead of time.
Liam Wakefield brings up, it says how fine the silver granules are on the acetate. Just bringing that up. Excellent. And good to see you. Javier Hara is here, and Mr. Andrat. Good evening, both of you. Thanks so much for being here tonight. And Sarcasm says, we have seen so many bad examples of lighting in recent films that it's very frustrating to know that it could be done so well in the 50s. What happened?
Agreed.
So honestly, what happened is the fact is this: filmmaking has gotten cheaper. That's why. So you had this natural gate. that you had to have access to X amount of money to make a film. And are there exceptions to the rule? Absolutely, there are exceptions like Plan 9 from Outer Space. But for the most part, you had to acquire enough knowledge just to be in the inner circles to get the opportunity to make a film. That's why a lot of those films are better and fewer films came out. Nowadays, with the onset of digital camera, you can buy a cinema camera for $2,000. Rig it out, get a couple of lenses, so you end up investing a little bit in a camera, get a couple of cheap lights, and then you can run out and start shooting stuff. And you have things that are now, people are going up on Tubi every single day. And people will go, oh, watch a video on YouTube, or I don't know, it kind of looks like this. So it's become the easiest now to make a film that it has ever been, but we're not getting an increase in better films.
Right. And I see Anna has joined us. Good to see you, Anna. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Plottle says, not if the highlights are clipping, Eugene. That might be an inside joke, I'm guessing. But you can use a DSLR to shoot a film too. Yeah, absolutely, you can.
Yeah.
Plothole. I have done so. So before we move on, I have to bring this up. So my mind was kind of blown as to a moment in this film, and the moment has absolutely nothing to do with the werewolf or anything. Although I loved the transformation sequence in this, the transformation sequence, which obviously is the highlight of any werewolf film. I think they took elements from the original, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and improved upon those, and then utilized. And what's really cool is they added in the kind of like, what is that? The waterfall technique to like the doodly.
Yeah, where he's like to run the water over like a plate.
Yeah, it's like in order to kind of blur that, which I thought was really, really cool. But the thing that got me in this one, and I fucking love this, was in the party scene at the haunted house, supposedly where all the kids are having fun. At the party scene, there is a phrase that was used by one of the other by like a throwaway phrase by one of the characters. One of the characters says the term Scooby-Doo. And I was like, what? So I was like, doodly. That's how it goes, plot hole. That's it. Doodly. That's the Wayne's World one. It's the only way I know how to describe it. Come on. Anyway, so I was watching this. It was like, I hear this guy say the term Scooby-Doo to one of the girls. And then they walk off frame. And then it goes back to the narrative. I was like, Scooby-Doo. I was like, I had to pause it because Scooby-Doo the dog, when we think about it, the dog didn't come around until like 1969. Was when Scooby-Doo was first on the air. Casey Kasem doing the voice of Shaggy and so on and so forth. But I was like, well, where it's like, holy shit. And then what I found was like, so where does that name come from? And what I found out is that before Scooby-Doo the dog was ever a thing, the term Scooby-Doo actually comes from British Cockney rhyming slang. And what it was Scooby-Doo was used to reference Scooby was used to reference when someone doesn't have a clue. So it was like, look at this Muppet standing here like he ain't got a Scooby. And that would be like the slang. It'd be like Scooby. It was like Scooby-Doo, clue. Just like if you remember from Ocean's 11, if we don't do this job now, if we don't do this job in Reno, we're in Barney. Barney Rubble, trouble. That's where that term came from. And now we understand the concept of like Scooby-Doo doesn't have a clue. And then they go and they mystery thing. I was like, what the fuck? So my mind was blown that this was like regular slang out there. Like I was like when Alex found out that when I had to explain what Mother was about to Alex, and he sat there silent for a little while.
You broke me that day. I was going to go back and watch it after I watched it the first time to try to get like an idea of what was going on because I was so confused. And then you played it out and I was like, I never would have come to that conclusion.
So it kind of got me. It got me. So I really love this movie. Had kind of a mind blow moment there, but I love everything they did with the cinematography. It was fantastic. And of course the werewolf transformation was great. And I love how they made it different, how they created a monster that was different from Lon Chaney's classic. Because you had the Lon Chaney version of this, and this one they amped up certain things and made other things demure. I liked the way they did this one, which I thought was really, really cool. So, but otherwise, a solid fucking film from the 50s.
Not bad. Didn't even have to polish a turd on the first one this time.
Nope.
So, let me ask the audience this. We said AIP, American International Pictures, was the producers on this. I want to ask the audience, what classic monster did AIP do best? Because they did do a whole bunch of classic. There's Dracula. If I can pull up my notes here.
Oh, they did. I Was a Teenage Frankenstein.
Yep. Frankenstein.
Yep.
They did everything. Aliens, Puppet People, not necessarily, classics, but they kind of touched on every classic monster at some point. They even did Catgirl, which is, okay.
AIP had a lot of really good stuff. And
they had a lot of really obscure stuff that ended up being really good, which was surprising.
So Tony Regime says the rhyming slang comes from the cartoon. It's a living language and evolves alongside the people. But we have someone in 1957 utilizing the term, which technically this film was shot in 1956, the back half of 96, back half of 56, released in 1957. So they were using the term then, and 12 years later, Scooby-Doo would come out. So I think the slang predates, and I think that the creators of Scooby-Doo utilized that slang as part of the title because it was a mystery thing and solving things. So like name the dog Scooby-Doo because I think that was the reference there. That's my theory. That's my theory.
Scooby-Doo, where are you?
No, you weren't the only one singing it. It was in my head. You got it. All right, Eugene, take us on to another surprisingly good one.
Yeah, this one I really enjoyed. I just finished watching it. It is Nightwing, which was released June 22nd, 1979. Roll it.
What is it that you fear the most?
Taxes.
Is it the dark? Or is it something that waits in the dark?
My critics.
Something so perfect in its evil that it has remained unchanged since the beginning of time. Something that has no fear of man. Something out there, waiting for the light to fade. Nightwing.
Let Chief find out what bled your animal to death. Made bite marks no one's ever seen, and left a stink of ammonia.
I filled the sky. It was like the end of the world.
And each species of life gives something in return for its own existence. All but one, a freak. The vampire bat alone is that species.
So there you have it. You have Nightwing, directed by Arthur Hiller and starring Nick Mancuso, David Warner, and Catherine Harold. And basically what it is you have a sheriff or a deputy who's investigating these mysterious deaths that turn out to be bats. Now there's a whole Indian lore behind it, but basically bats are terrorizing this town. And I want to say I really enjoyed this movie because honestly, something called Nightwing, I was expecting it in real low budget, super grainy, not well shot films. Like 1979, and we've watched so many of those before. And I started watching them like, this is legit production value. Like it's
weird watching YouTube and then flipping over to this and being like, the production is like the same. It's like new videos and all. I was like, this is insane. And I had no idea what to. Jail talked this one up a lot before we had a chance to watch it, and it was like, okay, what am I getting into? So I started, and I'm watching it. In the first 10 minutes, not even the first 5 minutes, when they walk up on the dead horse, and the cop, he gets out of the car. Well, where the hell were you? And he's like, I was cleaning pools. And I was like, what the fuck? And then he comes up and he's like, the helicopter starts to land, and the cop is like, what'd you do? And he's like, I called in this person. He's like, why the fuck did you do that? And I was like, oh, these are going to be the guys that fucked the whole thing up. And I'm like, this is great. Like, it played out really well. It was a really good movie. I was surprised to see it on YouTube for sure.
I was very, very surprised by how well this film was constructed, how well it was shot, and the story. Mostly, what really got me was the story. Now, I will point out, Casey Cooper says I had a Native American friend who was very offended by this film, and it was a pretty publicized movie at the time. It was when it hit theaters. Now, what's interesting about this is that this is directed by Canadian filmmaker Arthur Hiller. And Arthur Hiller was known predominantly for war films, for crime films, for romance, and your very stuff. This was the only horror film that Hiller ever directed, and I think that's what made it so solid. Because I think this, in the hands of anybody else, because Hiller had a very, very strong sense of narrative pace. And so in telling a particular story, there are certain beats that are hit in your whether it's an adventure film or a Western or a crime or a romance or a comedy, there are certain beats that you have to hit. And Hiller knows those extremely well if you look at his filmography. But in this particular one, oftentimes in horror films, those narrative beats, you can just cast them aside. You can just throw them out. You don't need them because we have just the horror aspect. We just want to scare people. Hiller didn't do that. Hiller maintained every aspect. So this is like a horror film meets a procedural, meets a kind of supernatural thriller. And what really, really got me was the blending of the supernatural aspects from the mythologies of the Hopi Indian, because it all takes place on the Hopi reservation, and the science that comes in to try and explain this and deal with it. And how what really got me were the conversations, was the dialogue. Fuck, this movie was so well written. Was the dialogue between many of the characters. The characters would go off, they would have a conversation with each other. It was David Warner and Nick Mancuso. Nick Mancuso, who played young Mandurin, and this, who was the deputy. And then, of course, you also had Stephen Mocht, one of my favorite character actors, who played Walker Chi. And they digress on things like how science can improve things or harm things for humanity, and how the big thing, white culture influencing Native American culture, and how the argument between embracing what the whites have can bring us hospitals and schools and infrastructure and all the things we need to survive, and then but at the cost of our traditions, of our history, of our sacred places. And so putting that forefront, and then bringing in this, maybe it's supernatural, maybe it's natural, we don't know, but we're going to approach it in both ways. I really, really dug that. I love the sense of ambiguity there, where you could put your thumb on either side, maybe even both, and how nature and magic, or mythology in this respect, could blend together depending upon your interpretation. I thought this was so compellingly written and well treated, which got me. Not to mention extremely well shot. Everybody did their job in this one.
It was well researched, and you can tell. And they brought in everything. The landscape shots are beautiful. The audio is done so well. You can take all of, because you're not wrong. The dialogue is amazing, and you get hooked into this movie the whole time. Even if you could take a lot of the scenes out, and you'd just be hooked on the dialogue in this, and the lore and the storytelling is amazing. But some of the shots, some of those cool shots that you see, some of the really, really far away shots that normally in that that day and age it would have been shitty quality, bad quality shots. But like you saw in the trailer, even when he was falling through that hole, that far away shot with the lighting done just right to where they can
that was an impressive stunt, by the way.
It was.
That really was. And
the way they used the camera to make it look so much farther than it was amazing. it was well done in all aspects, and done very well for the time. 1979. Yeah, there was a lot of good movies out then, but this was far beyond in this genre too. It was far beyond. I think they focused so much on the quality that it worked out. You get a lot of movies that are like, okay, we're going to do a really good job, and they overdo it, and they don't know what they are at the end of it. This played well through the whole entire movie. I was surprised. And JL talks up a lot of bullshit, and I was kind of worried because he talked this one up. And you get halfway through, and you're like, shit, man, he is right once in a while.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing is like I found myself really involved into the conversations in between the horror moments.
Yeah.
And that's the sign of a good film. It's like, okay, now when they're having conversations of it's like, oh, well, the white man worships gold, but that gold does bring hospitals where he's coming in is like, I conform to their ways, and now we have 5 casinos, and we have an electric power plant, and we have a school, and we have that stuff, but at the cost of our culture. It just has that nice subtext beyond just being like a bat or kind of an eco horror film with some supernatural elements to it. It's just riveting dialogue. The cinematography is just fantastic, and the fact this doesn't feel like a movie that's free on YouTube. I'm gonna be honest. Every time I was like, "It's free on YouTube," I'm like, but this was something that was exciting, and the characters are fully fleshed out, and you can tell that Arthur Miller paid attention to the details, and that's why his is better than a lot of others, because a lot of people stop at the horror. Well, we have the bats, and we get some cardboard cutouts, what Jay likes to call pants. So we have the pants just to fill in their role that they're supposed to fill in. They can die or not die, whatever. But it's like, no, what if we actually have a message and a theme outside of the horror element?
It was that we've talked about that oftentimes. Characterization is really what counts many of the times, because strong horror not only has strong horror elements, but characters that you can root for, characters that you can love, characters that you can despise, characters that we care about, that we're invested in. That's what really what separates it is like, the big, the successful horror franchises that have continued on to the ones that just wind up on Tubi every single day, because there's something there. It all comes down to the writing and how these characters are portrayed. And I love that there is throughout the entire film, there is no argument while all of these characters are dealing with these plague carrying vampire bats, this like giant, nest of like 40, 50,000 vampire bats that are attacking, they're spreading out, attacking everyone. Everybody's dealing with their own way, and no one's interpretation of what's happening is given credibility over anybody else's, which I really, really enjoyed. It's so, I mean, I have to mention that the conversation that took place between the proprietor of the store. There's that guy who was running the I think it was Charles Hallahan who runs the little goods on the reservation. So he runs this little goods, like I would say the little the store, the local store on the reservation, and he's a white guy. And he's been there for like decades, and he is married to a Native American woman, and they have I think he said they have 5 daughters. And so he's been trying to marry his daughters off because he's a dad, is what he does. But the conversation that he had about the relationship between Native Americans and white people, and how he initially came to the reservation to study them, to study their culture, and study the kind of get a good bit of information between about the relationship between whites and Native Americans. And he comes away with a Native American wife, Native American now mixed blood Native American daughters, and how he is kind of in this position where he is both necessary to the tribe and vilified by the tribe, and how his take on how the hatred kind of spreads and how it's built and how it continues on generationally speaking. And so here he is at the forefront. He's put himself in a position where he's necessary because he's got the access and they all need it, but it's all begrudgingly. And his take on that I thought it could be offensive. I could see why it would be offensive, but also I think kind of on the nose. So I found it to be really, really insightful. But some may disagree.
No, you're not wrong. Nowadays, you really got to look at that, because you got that fine line between. I use this term loosely. I'm not using it as any political affiliation, but you've got this line of one side there's real and there's woke, and you got a lot of different perspectives now that you didn't have 60 years ago. 60, 70 years ago, where it was like, this is how things are. This is how they're going to be. If you don't like it, then you get cast out. Now that everybody has their own kind of opinions, and there's a lot more outspoken groups. You have the ability to voice your opinion without, too much. You've got groups, you've got places that you can go to talk about things that you believe in. It's not so cut and dry anymore. Not that it was cut and dry then, but it was like, you're going to do it this way and you're going to like it. Now you've got the ability to voice your opinion. And so it's stuff like this would be, now it's harder to make those kinds of movies, but this one stuck to the fact that it recognized that there was, different sides to the story, and it played on both of those very well.
There was a blunt honesty.
Yeah,
it was like a hard honesty to this, which did not cast anybody in a particularly positive light.
Right.
So I mean, because we can look at it from either side of it. We can say who was the aggressor, who was not, and continue on. But when you're stuck in the middle, I thought it was a brutally honest perspective as someone who was standing there in the middle of it and was willing to address both sides and be like, look, man, it is what it is, and you try to make the best of what you've got with with dealing with this shit. And I really enjoyed it, and I can understand why some people would feel, why especially a Native American member of the audience would find this to be, because I can see why it would be offensive. But I think nobody comes out positive on that and addresses, addresses the bigger picture, which I think was really, really smart and dicey. That was chancy at the time, especially, in the 70s, when you're trying to do an eco horror and to basically showcase everybody's got fucking problems.
Right.
There's no like 100% good guy in this. Everybody's got their limitations, everybody's got their hangups, and I really, really enjoy, because that allows you, the characters, to play, to really, really engage with one another. Especially when you have two people, the scientist, David Warner, and the deputy, who is caught between his duty as a cop and his heritage as a member of the warrior tribe. And you have these two coming together and be like, okay, you're going to approach it your way, I'm going to approach it mine. And it's like, okay. And we're willing to accept this, but we have to work together in that respect. So give and take.
It's a respect thing. And that's what makes a good movie. It's honesty, because that's, you're showing life imitates art, but art also imitates life. If you sit there and throw a bunch of BS in there, people that know, like you're talking about, the Native Americans could be offended. You don't want to say something in this movie. You don't want to put something in this movie where an entire group of people is going to be like, well, that's fucking wrong. So you keep the truth to the whole thing, and it makes it real, and it makes it, harder, but also easier to watch in a way that, for everybody.
Yeah, because like watching this film, it seemed like Arthur Hiller at least did his homework, because you have a lot of Native American ceremonies that's going on in terms of like their dress and wear. Like, he wasn't somebody who just skipped over Native American culture, unlike that one film that we watched. I think it was like came out like 2007, like Bone.
Oh yeah, the I don't even think.
Yeah, I can't remember the title. I mean, it was clearly that was an insult to Native American culture, because the filmmakers just did not care. Arthur Hiller at least cares, and he wanted to talk about a subject, and that's one of the reasons why horror is our favorite genre, because you can talk about the uneasy truths between the white culture and Native American culture, while at the same time talking about, well, what if they had to work together because of a mutual enemy? We can really deep dive into this, and let's talk about those uncomfortable things, because a lot of filmmakers won't touch that.
Right.
Because it's a very difficult subject, and it's something that can be so easily mismanaged, where all of a sudden it's like, no, you're doing Native American appropriation, or it's like, okay, we're painting these people in bad light, or these people in bad light, these people the heroes. They're slanting either way. And I like how it's like, no, what we're going to do is we're going to say what it is. We're going to fully flesh out these characters, and we're going to talk about this uncomfortable subject against this backdrop. And then, hey, let's put a creature in that they have to work together in, and let's just see what happens. And it worked.
Yes. The presence of a threat to everybody's way of life which I thought was really, really good. And speaking of which, the bats. This is the last thing. I mean, going off this one, God, I fucking love this movie way more than I thought I was going to. I'm going to posit something, and I want you guys, now that you guys have seen it, I'm going to posit, and we talked about this beforehand, that there is some kind of connection between the film Nightwing and the movie and James Cameron and Piranha 2. Okay, so for those in the live chat, a little bit of backstory on this, or a little bit of like background information. In the movie Nightwing, the bats and all of the special effects were handled by legendary special effects artist Carlo Rambaldi. Carlo Rambaldi is an Italian special effects artist who was, like I said, legendary, worked with everybody major in Italian horror. He worked with Mario Bava, he worked with Fellini, he worked with Pasolini, Argento, a number of the greats that you've heard about. But also here in the States, he worked on fucking King Kong, the 76 version of King Kong, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He was the special effects artist who came up with the head idea for the original Alien, or Ridley Scott's Alien. He worked on Possession, which we talked about a few weeks ago, that excellent Sam Neill film. He worked on E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Dune, Conan the Destroyer, Silver Bullet, Cat's Eye. The guy is a legend, or was like, he passed away in 2012. So we have this legendary special effects artist who has worked on a number of big-time films that came out before Nightwing, right? Now, at the same time, Cameron is coming up in his career and is working predominantly for Roger Corman, doing miniatures and models for Roger Corman's productions. Now he gets the opportunity to work on special effects for the movie Piranha 2, which originally was directed by a guy I can't remember his fucking name, but it doesn't matter because he got into a fight with the producer on that film, and he walked off, and the direction responsibilities were handed to James Cameron. So Cameron, who was working in special effects, at the time, would be fully aware of movies like Alien and Close Encounters and all the stuff that Rambaldi had worked on. Now turns around and directs Piranha 2. And I shit you fucking not, there were shots in Piranha 2 which copied Nightwing almost verbatim. There were the bats coming out of the bats coming out of the darkness, the flying piranha coming out of the darkness, the bat coming up out of his shirt, the piranha coming up out of the body. The angles, the lighting, it was exactly like Rambaldi did. And I think that in his earliest work, Cameron took a lot of inspiration from Carlo Rambaldi. I, however, cannot find anywhere where this connection is established other than just positing it.
This is the thing. We had started talking about this, and Jail's like, Alex, talk about this. And then he goes into this fucking red string thumbtack conspiracy theory about how Cameron happened to see this movie.
Don't you see?
But it's not, you're not far off. This movie was so good for the time that, hell, if Cameron saw this, was probably like, that's it right there. That felt good, and you're not wrong.
Like, they're both dealing with flying things coming out of the dark. Yeah. One was flying piranha, the other one was vampire bats. So many things are duplicated. Even the sequence at the campfire, when the characters at the campfire and they get bombarded, like the Christian group that's out there, so on the nose. Thank you, fucking Hiller, for giving us that scene. It's like, we're coming out here to preach the good word. Vampire bats! And one of them, the tire with that chick gets run over. That fucking got me. She's like, splat. I was like, this is fucking brilliant. So
she's dead.
I'm even that sequence when the bats are descending upon them and they use the matte effect and the overlay effect to when they put it up there in the foreground, when they bring the bats in, even the physical ones, many of those I could see were copied over to Piranha 2 in the sequence when everybody's on the beach and the piranha come out of the ocean and start attacking everybody on the beach. Very, very similar stuff done in there. So I'm going to posit that James Cameron took. Genova says, would you say Jail is becoming a little batty? I am over this fucking film. I absolutely am. I will say that James Cameron took direct inspiration from the work of legendary special effects artist Carlo Rambaldi, because he, like you, Eugene, it's like you go in and you're a DP and all of a sudden you're fucking directing. So when you're like, I'm directing, well, I did come in as director, so you don't really have the director's plan. You now have to make it up on the fly. And
well, also, you have to keep in mind, so Cameron coming from a special effects background, he's going to watch movies for the special effects. That's the main thing. All the special effects artists I know, that's what they do. They're looking for the head explosions. They're looking for the prosthetic effects. They are looking for this and that, and they're trying to figure out how they do that. And they're going to focus more on that sometimes than the actual story or cinematography or anything else, because that's what they're passionate about. And the thing is, despite the fact that they've never worked together, it doesn't necessarily mean that Cameron never tried. There could also be times where maybe Cameron reached out to him a couple of times, and maybe he was busy, he was booked, and it was just never able to get their schedules to kind of line up to work together. Good. And it's sometimes that happens, but I guarantee you the fact that they at least knew each other, they probably maybe at least had a conversation at some point, or at least they at least have mutual friends. And if you have Cameron suddenly thrown into a directing role, he's going to go back to the movies that influenced him. It's like, you know what? I like this with Nightwing. I'm going to follow this formula because I like these effects, because these are the ones that I aspire to create.
Right.
So hands down, Cameron's going to focus on that stuff early on in his career, because that's how you get better. You see an awesome effect and go, I want to see if I can pull that off.
Hey, let's be real here. You might be onto something, but like, you got to think it's Cameron. So he probably, like you said, saw this work, reached out, wanted to work with them, was told no multiple times, and was like, you know what? Fine. Fuck you. You're not going to work with me? I'm just going to steal your shit.
I don't think at the time he was big enough to start running his mouth like that. He certainly is now, but
I think he's always been that way. That's how we got
This, of course, is complete and total speculation. I'm just because there's just too many similarities. So if
James Cameron pops in on the stream and he's like, that's not how it went down. We're like, how did you get here?
So if James, he has his ways. He's innovative.
Oh,
so
yeah.
if James Cameron wants to set the record straight, he can hit us up at weekinhorror@gmail.com and explain to me why so many of those scenes look so fucking. It's not a bad thing. Carlo Rambaldi was a fucking legend. You know, I love all of his work.
Listen, okay. James Cameron has the power. James Cameron went back in time to 1912 to sink a ship so that his 1997 film will be based on a true story. So, like,
he has the power. Oh, I fucking love it. And still, I don't care what a lot of people think. Piranha 2 was fucking awesome. That movie was great. Even though Cameron really doesn't like that movie, I think the reason that movie is good is because of Cameron. Because he did what he did, because he had great art direction and great special effects, and fucking flying piranha. That's fucking scary. You know, it's like, you know, I fucking love that movie. I love Piranha 2: The Spawning. So I gotta give that plus.
Of course, Cameron's gonna be like, oh, I don't like that film. When you've directed things like Terminator 2.
Yeah, I know, right?
And
the fucking abyss.
The abyss. And Avatar and all these. It's like, yeah, Piranha's my kind of weak early start.
We all have them. Ronan last name says, so Jail is saying that James Cameron was on the grassy knoll. Got it. So, who knows, man? But I love Cameron's work. But I have to say, there's definitely I'm speculating. There's definitely some Rambaldi influence there. I just got to give that out. Just got to. All right, yes. And someone said that tonight's rabbit hole was brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. This podcast is not sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
Okay, so I want to go and I want to ask the audience. And I know we have our kind of original idea of the call to action, but I want to know from the people, if you've seen the movie Nightwing, did you like it, dislike it, or find it offensive? And if you haven't seen it, at the very least, watch a trailer for it and definitely check it out. It's free on YouTube. It's a great film. But I want to know what the audience thinks of the film as a whole. Like, hey, this was a great film. I'm glad that y'all recommended it in the podcast. Or, no, this film was offensive and it was terrible and I would never want to talk to y'all again. Either way, just let us know. So comment below or shoot us an email at weekinhorror@gmail.com.
Awesome. I say it's got David Warner in it. There are 4 lights. It's got fucking David Warner who tortured Picard in it. Fuck you. I mean, there's my sci-fi nerd coming out. Dude, come on. Picard, David, Patrick Stewart, David Warner working together back and forth. Oh, fucking hell. That's one of my favorite episodes of TNG. Holy shit. David Warner's great. The Omen, David Warner, took the plate of glass right to the neck. Blah. Yeah. That's the sound I would have made.
All right. JL.
All right.
Hold on. What's that noise?
It's not the Turd Polisher 9000. It's not firing up. No, not the Turd Polisher 9000. I may have to. Well, not really, because okay. So
you're already backtracking. That's how it starts. It's like, no, I'm not gonna polish it. Well, what they tried was.
All right, so here we go. Let's go into our next film. Released June 23rd, 1982. I just turned 2 years old. We have the movie Satan's Mistress, but it was also released, and this is one of the things that I think.
What you want me to list them
not
off?
that great.
Demon Rage,
also
Demon
known as
Seed.
what I like, Dark Eyes, Fury of the Succubus, which doesn't even, that title doesn't even make any fucking sense. But I will say this: there is no trailer for this film. The entire movie is free on YouTube, and I have linked it in our Discord. So the link for our Discord is down in the description. If you want to watch the entire film, it is available there. Just be prepared. There are a lot of titties in this, and we will talk about that. But Satan's Mistress, shot in 1980 and released in 1982, directed by James Polikoff, written by Beverly Johnson and James Polikoff, and starring the legendary Lana Wood, Britt Eklund, Kabir Bedi, Don Galloway, and a cameo by horror favorite John Carradine as the priest, Father Stratton, who's going to come in and do the Harbinger shit for you.
I can never see a priest in a horror movie ever again and not think, I kick ass for the Lord.
I kick ass for the Lord. So the film Satan's Mistress follows a sexually frustrated housewife, Lisa, played by Lana Wood, who having it was slowly becoming estranged from her busy, husband, Carl. And she begins having nightly trysts with an apparition that gradually takes on the form of a tall and dark stranger, played by the, I will say, very handsome Kabir Bedi, who turns out to be a ghost from the other side, but a ghost with an ulterior motive.
It sounds like a Danielle Steele book. That's
this is so like. Danielle Steele. It really, really is. So ultimately, this film, I think, unfortunately, and I know Eugene's going to talk about the lighting issue on this one because that's what we're going to talk about, but it really is ultimately, despite the fact that this has the legendary Lana Wood in it, is just another 80s Satan sex romp and doesn't really bring what could have been a compelling story. It could have been falls into schlock. It falls too quickly into schlock. The only thing
80s horror movies that were all about let's show as many boobs as possible so we can get all of the people in here.
There was one set of boobs many times. Yeah. One set of tits many times.
Okay, you got to look at it though. We kind of touched a little bit on it earlier. Somebody in the live chat, and I'm sorry I can't remember who it was, said something about these are like drive-in movies. They're not really looking at the movies when they're going to the kids aren't going there to watch the movie. So you can get away with this.
These films are low on plot because producers know what kids at drive-ins are doing.
It's money grab, and it's real early in the 80s where this was really popular, and you got a lot of really big names. Everybody's getting into horror around this time, more now than ever, and so you've got an opportunity to make a movie because honestly, it could have been very good. The plot wasn't terrible, kind of generic, but they could have gone a lot farther with it, and they didn't, and it fell short. Just like so many. You try to look up, 80s. What do we got? Name one good one. Evil Dead was pretty good, but I guess that wasn't really like a Satan movie. I can't remember off the top of my head any 80s Satan movies that were memorable because they were all just cash.
Well, listen, when you show up to a film called
Panic bullshit,
you have a film that's called Satan's Mistress that came out in the theater. You're going to the theater alone.
with like some paper towels. That's
Tissues.
all I'm saying. A certain hub didn't exist at the time.
That's why there's always a Kleenex box in the back of 80 Toyotas.
Paul Rubens, what are you doing here? So,
oh no, low blow. Shit.
Raven Archer says, "What's wrong with 80 sex romps? Porky's was great. Porky's was great. Porky's was also like Animal House and fucking Revenge of the Nerds like that, but those were comedies. This one is really, really trying hard to be a horror thriller. You know, it had some decent. It had what I interpreted to be which could have been some decent moments, like the epic, like the epic setup to the decapitation scene when the guy goes down in the basement, gets his head lopped off, and all of the camera work was designed to try and create this growing sense. All the camera work, all of the lighting, and all of the sound were designed to create this growing sense of dread as more and more is revealed about what this entity is and what its intentions are, which are ostensibly to kill her and bring her back over to the spirit realm, forever. Because as the movie puts out, spirits are lonely because they're dead, and human loneliness can draw them into the physical world. And so that's what unites them, was the loneliness. But then the spirit doesn't want to lose her. So if she dies, she can join it and they can be in the spirit world together. And there's kind of like a weird satanic vibe to it because there's another woman that gets involved. It's not really well explained, but the biggest issue on this one was the fucking lighting. And I think that's what Eugene was alluding to earlier when we were talking about lighting on I Was a Teenage Werewolf.
Oh, it's hands down. The budget went to Lana Wood's boobs. That is exactly where the budget went to. Nothing else, because it is not shot well. It is not lit well. The visual effects, if you want to call them that, look terrible. The first time the spirit comes in, you have this blue blob that just kind of like comes in. And
it was like somebody shined a bad flashlight on the wall. It was like,
it was just
here it goes.
It was like this. It was just weird. And I always judge special effects based on when Star Wars came out. And it's like, okay, now you have A New Hope comes out in 1977. You have the new standard of visual effects. And this movie came out in 82. And like, wow. Really had the C team on this one.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the eyes effects when they glowed. The thing is, this movie, this is one step up from Brazzers. If we just really want to be honest, it's one step away. I really couldn't get into the plot that much. As soon as it was like they had the graphics come up and it was like the loneliness draws the supernatural so that they can bond together and share in loneliness. I'm looking around at the computer like, should I close the door to watch this? Like,
didn't say NSFW.
That was such a bummer. And what really, really got me on this one was while I was sitting there watching this movie and piecing it, was kind of like, okay, I see what's happening here. The involvement of the daughter and like all these traumatic sequences and John Carradine. I was kind of waiting for the John Carradine cameo at one point for him to come in and be like, "Oh, you've got the devil over there." Oh, do his little fucking harbinger shit. And he come in and get his paycheck and then move along. Because there's no exorcism scene, so literally they just go to a graveyard and talk to the nearest priest. Have to be John Carradine. So, but the thing that got me on this one, and I think that the reason for this film, number one, the film was extremely cheap. It was just a thrown together film really fast. But the big draw on this obviously was Lana Wood. Now, for those unfamiliar with Lana Wood, which you may do with this current generation, Lana Wood was the sister of Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood, her untimely demise, her death remains one of the big kind of like mysteries of Hollywood. Her sister Natalie drowned off the coast of, I believe it was Catalina Island. And it was long kind of hypothesized that Robert Wagner was involved in that. And with that stress going on in her life, because she died in 1980. And so you have this film being shot in the same year that her legendary sister, Natalie Wood ends up dying. And then you have Lana Wood, Bond girl, has this kind of idea. it has this kind of like the idea of what Hollywood makes of Bond girls at the time, because she was in Diamonds Are Forever. What I got from this movie and what was going on with Lana at the time and what was happening is that there's a reason why Satan's Mistress was Lana Woods. Oh, The Searchers. Yes, thank you, Casey Cooper. The Searchers, which is where she really broke out. This film was the last film that Lana would do for like 20 years. And then she went into production, went behind the camera, quiet life for like 20 years. Then she eventually, 20 years, I think a little over 20 years later, came back and was in front of the camera again. But given all the things that were going on, the one takeaway I had from Satan's Mistress was it was an unabashed look at what Hollywood would often do to its starlets. Because Lana Wood was a fucking Bond girl. Lana Wood worked with virtually every major top-tier actor and director in her career. And this is where her her opening career stops at Satan's Mistress, which is essentially just, Lana showing her breasts the entire film. In this lackluster, badly lit, poorly constructed, haphazardly written, low-budget schlock fest. And we're talking to the girl who worked on Bond films, who was world-renowned, the sister of Natalie Wood, but with a combination of Natalie's death, the combination of Robert Wagner's influence in Hollywood at the time, the view of her being a Bond girl where her sexuality is what really is her selling point. No, it's not. Lana Wood is a fucking phenomenal actress. All leads to this stress position where it's kind of like, what do you have for me? I've got to get out. And Satan's Mistress comes off to me like that last fucking movie you do to get that paycheck and get the fuck out. It's like maybe she was under contract to do another film for the production company, and she had to get out. She's just let me grab something, throw me in there, whatever. I got to get the fuck out of this place and deal with it, from another and do this from another perspective. I got that this was kind of like Lana trying desperately to get out of a bad situation. And so here's this silly fucking movie. Let's just do it and get it over with so that she can get the fuck out of the limelight because Hollywood had become too much. That's what I kept getting from this thing.
We're sorry, folks. The Turd Polisher 9000 has broken.
I told you I didn't.
Real shit instead.
I told you I didn't need it. I didn't need it on this one. There's nothing to polish about Satan's Mistress other than it's rough when you watch it and you think about what was going on in Hollywood at the time. What was going on the center around Lana Wood. After Natalie died, all of a sudden the spotlight's on her. And the relationship, they kind of, turns because, Natalie was married to Robert at the time. Robert was extremely influential, in Hollywood. And then all of a sudden you see Lana's career kind of like dip, and then Satan's Mistress and she's out.
Well,
I think this is a commentary.
Well, the thing is it's people who are regarded as sex symbols, and sex symbols come and go so quickly because everybody's always looking for the next sex symbol.
Right.
Not to mention when you have somebody, they come in, they're a Bond girl. It's an obvious sex symbol position. You hit that height. And then as you age, and this is just unfortunate, as you age, your value decreases. And as your value decreases, Hollywood is already looking for the next one. And you see it even today. It is easier for an attractive woman to break into Hollywood than it is for a male. Hands down, it is easy. If you take even somebody, for example, like Megan Fox, never ever considered Megan Fox a great actress, but she was attractive enough to break into Hollywood. She had her limelight.
Landon roles.
I'll give her. Megan Fox. I'll give Megan Fox this.
Wait.
She was solid in Jennifer's Body. I'll give her that. Keep going.
Yeah. I mean, Jennifer Body is a fun, campy film.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is it trails off. People always looking for the next one, and you begin to lose that in Hollywood. Now, are there exceptions? Yeah, you have people like Kate Winslet and Helen Mirren who are just that top tier class of acting, but they're able to carry films on their own based on their ability to act, whereas a lot of these starlets come in, they can't. They're the hot new thing, and then people are like, well, cool, all right, well, she had her 15 minutes. What do you got next? And it just trails off.
And unless you are able to carry yourself as a top tier actress, or unless you're able to marry somebody of power in Hollywood, you eventually fade out. And nowadays, instead of just fading away, you end up in reality television, which is kind of the bottom of media. You're known as somebody who was in this, and that's how you just make money from then on out.
Tony Regime says solid in Jennifer's body is an unfortunate choice of words to clip. Absolutely. Wrote in no last name. You're right. Jennifer Connelly as well. Many Jessica Chastain. So many solid solid actresses out there. So many dominant actresses out there. And while yes, I will agree with this. Jay Vers has brought up, what do you mean at the time Hollywood has never stopped being a toxic cesspool? I will
That's
agree.
true.
There is a toxic cesspool mentality to it, unless you have the connections and the money to shield yourself from it, which is few and far between. Not everybody can do it. However, it's different nowadays in the sense that post Me Too, there is a voice. Women do have a voice. Women directors, and I honestly think it kind of kicked off. And I'm going to give credit here with Catherine Bigelow with her win for The Hurt Locker. That's when things really began to change. But because Catherine was like, yes, women can be up here as well and win fucking, Best Director, Best Picture, Academy Awards and shit. But now post Me Too, the environment has changed. Back in the 70s and the 80s, there was that kind of silent objectification. And unfortunately, I think someone as talented as Lana, even someone as talented as Natalie Wood did not get her fair shake either. I mean, she was put up there. She was a sex symbol. And yes, she'd worked with many, many, great leading men and many great directors. But I think it would have happened to Natalie as well. But, unfortunately, Natalie passed away. And it happened to Lana. And Lana saw the way the wind was blowing. In my interpretation, this is total speculation on my part. Lana saw the way the wind was blowing and used what money she had and what connections she had. And she backed away from the camera and said, I'm going to go more into production and behind the scenes, just working there, because that's where I need to be, out of the limelight and away from it. And then she was able to
Well, you also have to keep in mind, like, studios look at people and go, how can you make me money? That's how studios have always thought. And especially back then, when you're looking at, like, say, the quote unquote golden era of Hollywood, where directors were no-name people. They weren't. You cycle through directors just like anybody else. It wasn't until recently, in the last probably about 20 years, directors have finally been able to, like, have their own staying power. But you will have these starlets that will go through and they just get used up. And then, unfortunately, when people talk, who were the great people like Marilyn Monroe and Sharon Tate? The reason why they live at that high pedestal back then was because we never saw them age.
Right.
That's it. We've never seen what Marilyn Monroe looks like at 70 or at 50, because she was at the height of her beauty before she died. Sharon Tate was at the height of her beauty before they died. So they're like, people look at Marilyn Monroe and like, oh man, that's that Hollywood standard. That's why she's last for so long, because of her unfortunately untimely pass.
Natalie Wood as well.
Yeah, Natalie Wood as well. So, and that's something that is very unfortunate. And I'm really glad to see that Hollywood is kind of backing women more. That you don't have to go through people like the Weinsteins. You don't have to degrade yourself to try to make it into Hollywood, because that was a route. A lot of people thought that was the only route to get into Hollywood.
Right. So, and we've seen it again, not only Lana Wood, who was able to come back after 20 years, start being in front of the camera again, but I will say another example that would be Kelly McGillis. Kelly McGillis did the exact same thing, got to a certain point, took time off, walked away, did her thing, and then eventually was able to come back and has been working regularly as well. So I would say that's the thing that got me about Satan's Mistress was I couldn't get out of my mind was, despite what this is and seeing Lana's, excellent breasts. It was just that this film was an ignominious exit to a legendary and extraordinarily talented actress who has so much talent. And I'm so glad that she's come back, and she was producing at the time, but now is back in front of the camera and working as well. And I got to give her credit for that. She survived that onslaught and she made it through, as difficult as that was. But the CTA, the question I want to ask the audience tonight, regarding Satan's Mistress. Now, at the time Satan's Mistress came out, there was another movie that came out about sexy times with a ghost.
Oh,
sexy times with Bow Chicka Wow Wow with a ghost.
Oh, scary movie.
Oh, so that movie was The Entity, starring Barbara Hershey. The difference between Satan's Mistress and The Entity was that the sex in The Entity, or the sex in Satan's Mistress, was consensual. In The Entity, it was decidedly not. Both of them are horror films. Both of them center around the same thing, but there is that one major difference, which obviously, narratively speaking, is a huge fucking thing. But they deal with the aspect from a feminine perspective, from two different feminine perspectives. One is the lonely housewife, the lonely and ignored housewife. The other one is the woman that no one takes seriously. And both of them, I thought, approach the same kind of like the same subject matter from two different angles. But I want to ask the audience, who do you think did it better? Which one who handled the topic better and approached it better? The Entity or Satan's Mistress / Demon Seed / Demon Fury / Fury of the Succubus? So
I really think it depends on what type of film you're trying to watch. If you're trying to watch something that's like, okay, let's kind of go into a possession, you have The Entity. If you're looking for alone time, then I'm going to go with Satan's Mistress.
Yeah, because that alone time, is so different when you're watching The Entity.
It really is. I mean, you can power through it. It's just harder.
I feel so guilty. Sorry. That was gross. That was so gross.
Man.
But definitely let us know in the comments which one was the stronger one. I see a lot of love for The Entity in there. Sarkaz says The Entity was way better. Strange Lex 790, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Says The Entity as well. That was an intense fucking movie. That was it. The Entity got me. That one was a hard one. But yeah, let us know down in the comments below or weekinhorror@gmail.com. All right, Alex, take us home.
Listen, we can shut the turd polisher down here. We're going to talk about, which I find one of the best film titles ever, Accidental Exorcist. Came out June 24th, 2016. Let's see a trailer. Wait, hold on. I've seen this scene before.
In a world where a man stands alone. Sorry.
You have a gift. You're a healer. You are a blessing to other people. No one is given that kind of a gift who is not meant to use it. Remember, you were meant for this.
The only way to give light is to burn, Richard. And you will burn.
They could have probably pulled away from that tagline of "Evil touches all of us."
Yeah, that was a really bad segue from the previous film.
didn't
poor
even know
choice
that
of
was there,
words.
so that was a surprise. But aside from that, this film being a very unique, original, and I think in-depth look at the genre, directed by Daniel Fleeke, written by Warren Crowell, Sherry Bath, and Daniel Fleeke. This one is I've lost my entire cast list here. Hold on. You got Daniel Fleeke, Face Hills, Cheryl Desperis. See, sorry, I was pulling a Eugene there. David Higby, Julian Howe is in this one. So this one, essentially, a natural born exorcist is dealing with the day-to-day life of, as we all know how to deal with satanic fucking possessions every day of our lives. Battling his own demons, kind of starts to embrace the fact that he has this gift and he is helping people, and slowly kind of has to fight his own demons to fight real demons, essentially. So I'm having a hard time explaining it because there's kind of two things to this. You've got kind of like this addiction story kind of laid into this really cool, unique look at the genre of demon possession and exorcism, where you've got this exorcist who is kind of forced into the role. It's not like he, chose this, it chose him. So he got to take this, kind of hate it, and then slowly love what he does. And it kind of gets into a little bit of trouble. Left, right, left, right, left, right. He just kind of gets hit from all directions, but keeps popping back up. So it's a story of triumph. It's a story of battling demons, not only, biblical, but your inner demons as well. I thought this one was really good. I really enjoyed this one. I'd never even heard of it. It's a new movie, which I was shocked. Newer movie. Fuck, 2016 was a while ago. But yeah, I was kind of blown away that I'd never seen this one before because of how unique and original it was. I figured more people would be talking about it.
I think one of the things that it kind of got swept under because it's a good premise and it's a really fun movie to watch. But one of the things is, and I'll be straight up honest, the cinematography is not great. And I think that's one of the things that really probably lost a lot of people, is because it feels, and I've said this before, it feels like a student film. I think I said about the Dee Wallace film was like last week or the week before last. It feels like a student film in terms of the lighting and the camera quality. And so initially, right off the bat, like as soon as I started watching, I was like okay, I'll stick with it because I have to. But I'm going to complain about it the entire time. And then it turns out I was like, oh, okay, it is a fun movie. But I think it's something that probably hurt it was just kind of a failure on some of the technical aspects.
I suppose if you're looking for a blockbuster, this wasn't it. This wasn't a money grab, but the story and the way that they approached the exorcism aspect of it, because there's already, I mean, we have fucking tapped out exorcist movies. It's played. And you pull into this one at 2016 and there's still some unique takes on what the exorcist goes through. And a lot of them you're focusing on the demon part of it. On this one, it's kind of like, okay, this guy's really fucking going through it. Let's kind of stand by his side while he goes through it.
And that's what I dug for a lot about this one is the film felt very Eugene is correct. It did feel a bit like a student film, but what I really, really enjoyed was the almost experimental nature of the film itself. The idea of like this natural exorcist. We see that the character that Daniel Fleeke, who was he directed it, and he also starred in it. It was Richard Vanek, who played the character of Vanek. So he suffers from the stigmata. And his suffering from the stigmata gives him this natural ability to essentially yank the demons out of people and draw them what it looks to be through himself and then expel them out. So, but this constant pressure of this calling that he has, he suffers from the stigmata. It's extraordinarily painful and gruesome. And now he's being tasked by this kind of like faceless authority to go out and fight these demons. And he's a nobody. There is nothing arguably special about Vanek other than the fact that he was tapped. That's it. So he was tapped to have this gift, and now he's going out to go and do this. And so he's running around doing house calls, taking out demons, and we see this at this point when we come into the story, which is what I loved about it, the experimental aspect. It's not the origin story. This has been going on for him for a long fucking time. We see him, we're coming into the story at the end of his rope, where the constant, the brutality of what he's doing, never knowing what he's walking into. At this point, he is a full-blown alcoholic, likely a drug addict. And if he's not out exercising, he's fending off his landlord, who I have to admit had some fantastic improv lines.
Fantastic.
I loved his improv. But is fending off his landlord's threats or hanging out in a bar getting drunk with what very, very little money he has. So we come into the film with a broken protagonist, an absolutely broken protagonist who cannot do anything about about this gift he's given. And at the one time he tries to walk away, he quickly realizes that he cannot, that the world that is outside, like the 9-to-5 everyday life, is just not going to swing. It'll drive him fucking insane. So he goes right back into it. I loved that, having a broken protagonist and walking in, and how the demons themselves were not the classic representation of what demons are. And what the trailer kind of misses were not, I wouldn't say not the Raimi comedy, that's not campy comedy, but there are some funny moments in this where he is dealing with this, because you have the guy, he's a seasoned veteran. I'm coming in here, I'm going to break this shit down. It's like, what gross nastiness am I going to be faced with at this point? And he's going in there with that kind of like, I'm going to win. Fuck, man. But I'm probably drunk and I'm all fucked up and I don't know. And I haven't slept in days. So like, fuck it. And he goes in there with that kind of aloofness, which is antithetical to what ostensibly he's being, which is like an on-call exorcist. So I liked that approach. This, nobody being brought into like something that is held with such esteem, like, oh, this is exorcism and God and demons and the devil and the fight between good and evil. And this guy's just like, man, I have so fucking had enough of it. I am so goddamn done.
Got third one today. Fuck.
But he's still going out and he's fighting with it, and I loved that. And then the little moments, there were moments where the demons will talk to him or he'll talk to them. And the exchange of information before they get down to the nitty gritty. I really, really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the writing on this. I thought it was strong, but there were a lot of experimental moments where I think they were just kind of, let's create a scenario as a director and a writer. Let's say, this is the scenario. You're walking in. There's a demon-possessed dude. He's super, super fucking fat. He's a huge, huge obese guy who's possessed. There's food everywhere, but none of it's been touched. Okay? Your walk-in situation, what happens? And just run with it. And I got that sensation from a lot of the sequences in this. It's kind of like walking in, let's play it organically, which I thought was very risky, but really intriguing, which kept me glued to the screen. But I really enjoyed Felicki's approach to this, and the writer, I will say, Warren Croyle, because Warren and Daniel have a very similar relationship to me and Eugene, where I write and Eugene goes and directs it. And I thought it was fucking cool. It's like he's his writing partner. So I really dug that. I like what they were with, not what they were trying to do, what they pulled off for the money they had and what they had to work with. Some good Raimi influences, some solid writing, good experimental. Let's play with it and see where it goes organically. And then lead up to that fucking climax when he brings like the dream girl home from the bar. I wasn't expecting that shit.
Wait a
what
second.
the fuck?
No, you're not wrong. There was a lot of like almost improv. It was like exactly like you said, set the scene, walk in. And that's what, Flicky does. There's a lot of like humor and it's not forced. And that's, I think, what makes it fit is it's not like
sometimes it's almost tragic.
Right. It's like he's Sarcasm said it was repetitive, doing the same routine over and over again. But I think that in itself is what made his trial so interesting.
Yeah.
And that is the fact that he was still kind of looking into it. There was like this jaded aspect to him, but he would take like these pictures and he would kind of talk to the demons, and he'd be interested in some stuff, and he'd throw jokes around like, yeah, whatever, I do this every day, you can't touch me, I don't give a shit what happens to me. But maybe there's a little interest there, like maybe let's find a deeper meaning. And it's so natural. And the humor, that's what got me, was the humor wasn't forced, it wasn't written in a way. You could tell that they allowed Flicky, well, he was directing, so he got to play. He's like, no, I don't like it that way, that sounds too forced, and would go back and probably just improv the shit out of it, which made it supernatural. That was not a pun. It made it very natural, which made the comedy work in such a dark situation. Like, it doesn't come off as it's supposed to be funny. It's almost kind of sad, but you feel him.
I would almost classify this as like a tragic comedy horror.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of Buffy the TV show, because you have a character that is just called. Right. That Buffy didn't ask to be the Slayer, or she didn't do anything to become the Slayer. It's just this ability that's awoken to her, and now all of a sudden she has to save the world time and time again. And you notice how she approaches various situations, because there are times where you forget that she's a 16-year-old girl. Then there are other times where you have this horrific thing happening, and she's like, "Oh, Dawn's kidnapped. It must be a Tuesday." The very nonchalant part, and how many times that she's gone into these brutal fights, and she's just like, "Yeah, you're gonna kill me. I know I'm going to win.
Right.
I just know you're gonna get some good hits in. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna suck a lot, but I'm still gonna win, regardless." And it just made me think of that. And I've always I like characters that are given abilities that don't ask for them or don't necessarily want them, but they can't do anything else. And it's kind of like they're destined to do that, like Sarcasm said, do that over and over again. And that's that cycle that they're stuck in for the rest of their life. And they know that, and how they deal with that is what makes those characters interesting.
Right. It's that feeling of like, okay, here we go again. I do this 3 times a day, every day, 7 days a week, but I'm pretty fucking good at it. So Eugene, with that reference to Buffy, you reminded me of the musical episode when the musical demon was kind of like, I could just kill you, and she's like, won't help, and he's like, oh, that's gloomy. I love that sequence. It's like, trust me, won't help. Oh, that's gloomy. But I do dig that. And one thing I really, really liked was there's one particular demon when he goes in, and it's this guy who calls him in, and it was like to exorcise his brother. That sequence right there I felt was the best of the bunch of like the random exorcism that he's getting called into. When he gets called into to exorcise the brother, and the guy who calls him is like this devout Catholic. He's like, Father, you're here, like this, and he's coming in there, and he actually has to put on the what's the name of it? I can't remember the collar. He has to put the collar on to go in and be the whole like fucking, well, I'm the Catholic exorcist, here I am. No idea anything about the Catholic faith. Completely ignorant of the whole process. He knows there's a Bible involved, and he has some rudimentary knowledge, but the guy who called him obviously knows more. And so he's making up shit on the fly to try and be like, yeah, this is all about. It's not. It's because to this guy, who I think, although it's never really established, that the character himself may have actually been an atheist, who may have been irreligious or simply didn't care, is now suddenly thrust upon him. And so he realized that like the faith doesn't matter. None of this fucking like, candles and like ritual and Latin, none of that shit fucking, the Latin, none of it fucking matters. There's monsters here and I can cast them out. It's all fucking smoke and mirrors. And so he goes in there and we see that the guy who's seen behind the curtain, who's seen how the sausage is made, and then interacting with somebody who still has all the illusions and still operating as though like, oh, it has to be this way, with this kind of reverence, which is completely pointless. And I like that they posed it that way, as like this evil exists. You have to fucking fight it. All of the trimmings, all the window, all that other bullshit is all fucking window dressing.
just to like, whatever. And I
It might
loved
be a
how
Ruger, it might be a Smith & Wesson, it might be a Taurus. Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. And I liked that Croyle, that writer Warren Croyle went there and presented it that way. I thought that was really, really smart. So if you can get past the very, very gooey grossness, because there's a lot of, Sam Raimi style of Mises in this fucking movie. There is a lot, especially
they're watching it. Listen, they're listening and watching a horror podcast.
Oh, there's so much. There's so much. It's Peter Jackson level, Sam Raimi level, just shit getting in your fucking mouth, and people may not. But yeah, I would say definitely give this one a chance. It's free on Tubi right now. Go and take a look at it. Like who was it who said that? I think it was Sarcasm said, I watched this one 3 times this week and still can't decide whether I loved it or hated it.
And that's what makes it a good movie.
Absolutely.
The indifference of all of it.
The thing is, it sticks with you. And it is also free on YouTube, by the way, too.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
That's where I
watch it on YouTube. No, well, I mean, Tubi's got ads. So if you don't mind ads, watch it on Tubi, because at least then the filmmakers will get we'll get a few dimes from that one. But you can also watch on YouTube if you just don't like ads. So
cool. Well, hey, we're getting there. So let me ask the audience: if you've seen this one, do you think it's remake worthy? That's a loaded question. And before I watched it, I was like, well, it's so new. Why would you do that? But with a couple extra dollars, this could be something.
I agree. These are the type of movies that need remakes. They're the ones that have great stories that maybe fall a little short on some of the technical or some of the cinematography, probably just because of budget restrictions. And it's like they may have made this movie for, I don't know, I'm just throwing a number out, like maybe $200,000. And it's like, I wonder what they could have done if they had $1 million or $2 million
or $2 million.
The budget to be able to get a good crew, a good camera, fix some of the lighting issues, and then go with that, because the story's solid.
Listen, as long as they don't fucking cast John Cusack as the main character, we'll be all right.
So Sarcasm says, when he said the Bible was only 15% accurate, I nearly died laughing. That one was pretty. There is some smart fucking writing in this movie. I gotta give it to Croyle and Felicki. There was some really smart shit in this film. I just stuck out. It was like, oh, fuck yes. Yes. Oh, I think you'll enjoy it. And Tony Regime says, it doesn't matter how many times you watched it. You watched it again. And that is the sign of a potential cult film.
That's exactly,
Yep.
Absolutely.
I hate rewatching movies. There's probably like 5 that I'll rewatch. This is probably going to be one of them.
And Sarcasm says, nope, don't touch it. The improv lines are what gives it its dark humor. If it was fully scripted, it would suck. And I agree. I will agree with that. The fucking improv moments, which are very obvious, are really good, especially the fucking landlord. The landlord was fucking killing me, man. Just when he's just coming up with that shit on the fly. I was like, who is this fucking asshole? Well, he's the landlord, so I guess he can yell. I guess he could do that. You're behind on your rent, But what the fuck are you gonna do? It's like, I was like, but I couldn't help it. It's like, if that landlord was yelling at me, I would just laugh my fucking ass. But probably if I laughed my ass off, I would get my ass kicked too, because that was a big motherfucker. So
it reminds me of the Will Ferrell landlord skit.
All right, so you know what time it is, Eugene? You're supposed to say it.
Oh, trivia time.
Fucking beautiful, boys.
It's that time that everybody on the show is longing for, the opportunity to win some swag from the Week in Horror store. We have so much cool stuff at the store right now. We have t-shirts, we have coffee mugs, we have stickers, we have all kinds of stuff and limited edition artwork stuff that is available. And Raven Darkstar says, damn it, sorry, hon. He says, don't. She says, don't. It's like, yeah, she hates that. Raven Darkstar hates that.
Don't do it. Hey, and if you haven't already, go up there and hit that like button.
Appreciate that, yes.
There's few people in the chat and only few likes.
Smash the like button. Yes, absolutely. But here's tonight's trivia question. Remember, the first person who gets the correct answer in the live chat, we have that live chat up right now. First person to get the correct answer in the chat wins a mystery item from the Weekend Horror store. So, Eugene, take it away.
Get those.
What?
Damn, did he just get fucking banned from YouTube?
I think he just got booted.
Google fingers ready. Trivia question.
Oh,
am I back? Am I back now?
Okay, you're back.
Okay. I level of suspense. Perfectly timed.
Plothole says I hit the like button twice. If you do hit the like button multiple times, please make sure it's an odd number.
Yes. Now, the trivia question is, AIP started in 1955 with crime and Western films. But what was their first horror film? AIP started in 1955 with crime and Western films. But what was their first horror film? The first person to comment below wins the mystery item from the store.
Now, I put some thought into this one. I had to go back, so see what they've got.
All right, let's see what we got.
Not as hard as the questions I was asking during the After Dark. So,
yeah, the After Dark was hard.
I wanted to be a challenge. Who's got the correct answer? Who's got the first answer?
And we got bam right off the bat. We got it.
Oh,
Sherry
wow.
Tilly.
Boom.
The answer is The Beast with a Million Eyes.
All right.
Congratulations, Sherry Tilly.
Nailed it.
Dang. So, Sherry, I mean, you've won. This is the second time you've won. You're challenging Travis Brown.
Yeah.
For the trivia championship here, getting those right answers in. Congratulations. Yes, it was The Beast with a Million Eyes, which was about an alien organism that comes down and infects life, and it can try to take over the planet, and it can see through the eyes of everything that it infects. So, a kind of a hive monster thing. But yes, The Beast with a Million Eyes was AIP's first ever horror film. Congratulations, Sherry Tilly. We will get that printed out for you. Raven Darkster says, "Damn it, I tried." Wrote in the list name, says 20 eyes in my head. Casey Cooper also had Beast with a Million Eyes. Yes, but congratulations. Oh, Travis Brown says Sherry needs to come to the After Dark. And you can, but we'll describe that here. We'll tell you how in just a moment because, and I got to get the set.
Oh, wait.
What?
So Sherry Tilly said, "Can I donate my prize to someone who hasn't gotten anything yet?"
You absolutely can, Sherry.
Yes, you can.
Absolutely. So definitely you can, if you want to, let us know via Discord or via weekinhorror@gmail.com who you would like to donate that prize to. We will get that printed and shipped out to them. So absolutely, let us know. Because
cool. Thank you.
It was Travis who did that last week. So you absolutely can donate your prize to someone else in the live chat. And well done. Thank you. Very generous of you. And of course, and I had to make sure I get this right, that's going to bring out blah. That's going to close out another episode of the Weekend Horror Podcast. Shut up. I can't fucking talk tonight. Anyway, that's going to close another episode of the Weekend Horror Podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We truly hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, smash that follow if you're listening to us on a podcast site, or that like and subscribe button, and be sure to hit that bell so you never miss a future episode. Join us next week when we look back at Hammer's version of The Phantom of the Opera, the chilling horror anthology Scare Us, Irish resurrection horror in Wakewood, and the brutality of post-apocalyptic survival in The Domestics. Be sure to check out Josh Olsen's store at badsamurai.store. He does all the awesome artwork you see splattered all over our merchandise, which you can find over at Teespring. For more from Weekend Horror, check out all the bloody links that are down in the description. Follow us on all the social medias for the daily splatter, your daily horror recommendation. Join our Discord for watch parties, big announcements, and all kinds of horror shenanigans, and support the show through our PayPal link or through our Patreon. You can join the higher tiers for early content access, behind-the-scenes fun, come with us and hang out as a special guest judge on our Bloodbath debates, or join us for our After Darks and win some more trivia prizes, or even just support the show for as little as $1 a month. $1 a month. What are you waiting for? Join us. And as always, thank you all for being the greatest fucking audience a horror film podcast could possibly have. I am JL.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Eugene.
We will see you all next week. And as always, stay scared.